Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys watching me. Sorry, I was kind of lost in thought for a moment. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and today I'm doing a bit of a different video than what I am used to making. I always struggle when it comes to things such as favorites and talking about favorites. So I thought maybe I'd start a little recurring series where I talk about some of my favorite books. Because my God, I have so many favorites, just so many. It's disgusting how many favorites I have. But I'm going to talk about some of them today, mainly the ones that I own, because believe it or not every book that is one of my favorites is one that I own. I also won't be bringing up fantasy or science fiction too much. There will be one science fiction book, and there will be one fantasy book in this, but I will make a favorite science fiction and favorite fantasy book lists at a different point. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but eventually I'll do that, and it'll be its own video. But this series is more just about some of my favorite books, why I love them, and why I think you all should go read them. Ah, kind of congested for some reason. So, yeah, I guess this is some of my favorite books, Volume 1, if you want to call it that. And also, this is completely off the cuff, by the way, so you're probably going to hear me say and a lot, so forgive me. I probably going to do that a lot. Let's get to it. So, one of my favorite books of all time, a lot of people know this. I don't actually own this book, and it makes me really sad because I thought I did own this book, but I guess I didn't. I guess I just borrowed it one time. I don't know why I don't own this book because it's one of my favorites. But it's The Great Gatsby. It's probably my favorite classic American novel. It's one that I read at a very impressionable part of my life, and it's one I come back to every couple of years, and I love it a lot. It's really the book that inspired me to finally realize that, you know what, maybe writing is your true calling because there's just something about it, just well, I think really what I love the most is just the musicality of F. Scott Fitzgerald's prose, or well, whoever wrote it. Apparently, there are rumors that his wife Zelda might have written parts of it, but I don't care. Whoever wrote it really knew what they were doing, and they really tapped on a vein that really spoke to me at a certain part of my life, and I'm glad that it did. It's not really just a book. I know a lot of people might roll their eyes and think that, oh, it's a book that teachers make you read when you're in high school. And I actually read this book in high school. And I looked forward to it because, I love The Great Gatsby a lot. But it's also a tragic romance. It's also a very crushing lamentation on the failures of the American dream. And it's a very beautiful book. The last page alone is some of the most beautiful prose I've ever read in the English language. You will not hear contest from me. It is one of the great American novels, indeed. And I think everyone should read it. It's not very long, and I think it could be published today. I mean, there is a heightened sense to the language, but it's not overly purple. It's not something that you probably couldn't read today. It's pretty, I don't want to say it's accessible. Well, you could read it in like a day if you really wanted to. It's only about 180 pages, but I mean, it's a fantastic book. I love it a lot. I think that it really captures the dark, decadent, and very troubling aspects of the American dream. And Gatsby is a very tragic character. I think he is. It's. I mean, The Great Gatsby is almost Shakespearean in its tragedy. It's so good. I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? It's a fantastic book. I do hope to cover it on this channel at some point. Yeah, it's a great book. I love it a lot. I have talked about it before, so I'm sure a lot of people will be like, wow, Britton, wow, you really like The Great Gatsby. And yes, I do. Deal with it. Anyway, moving on. Next book I have here is one I do actually own, and that is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Now, I can feel the eye rolls, because I talk about this book a lot. And a lot of people are like, well, Britain, what about The Road? What about No Country? What about All the Pretty Horses? All fantastic books, all great works of literature, but I don't think anything yet that I have read from McCarthy has beaten what he did in Blood Meridian. This book is like an apocalyptic fever dream, a nightmare, if you will. I mean, fuck the American dream. This book is the American nightmare. Um, it is if I mean if The Great Gatsby is mournful, this book is just scathing. This book is about the violence of which America is built on. It's about the forces of good and evil and how they move among us. And it has, again, some of the most spellbinding prose I have ever read in the English language. I mean, my God, just read the first page of this thing, and you'll get what I'm talking about. Cormac McCarthy was a modern master. And if you remember last year, I made a short video discussing my thoughts on his passing and why I think he is as great as he is. And I think Blood Meridian is really the highest achievement of his career. I mean, I know Carol from the Falcon Reads really likes The Passenger. He says that's his best book. I am healthily skeptical. I don't want to discount him entirely. He's a great guy. He's a very smart guy. I don't want to discount him entirely, but for my money, Blood Meridian still the king. But then again, I still need to read The Passenger, so we'll see how I feel once I get around to it. Also, I've already talked about this, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but if I've already talked about these books, I'll link the videos down below. I did discuss this book with my friend Kyle Jonathan. It's actually one of my favorite conversations I've done. I was kind of sad that no one really watched that, because, man, I was really proud of that. But oh well, it's fine. I'm not guilting you at all. But yeah, Blood Meridian is a fantastic book. It's a book that it's funny. 2019 was a year I read a lot of books that really changed my life, and Blood Meridian was just one of those books. I guess it's. I mean, again, it's McCarthy's masterpiece. As far as I'm concerned, this is his masterpiece. This is the one he will be remembered for long after he's gone, and he's only been gone for almost a year now. That's crazy. We're almost a year we lost him, and yeah, for my money, Blood Meridian, still the best. So, yeah, I'm going to put that down here. Next book I'm talking about is a fantasy novel. Again, I'm going to make my own list of favorite fantasy novels, but I could not help but leave this out. And again, I can't shut the hell up about this book, and that is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This is a magical book. I just have to say that right now. This is a magical, magical book. Just imagine, it was 2019. I was just about to graduate from high school, and I had a lot of free time in gym. So I ended up cracking this book open out of interest, because I was actually reading a lot of, like new wave British comics at the time from like Vertigo. So I was reading, Sandman, Swamp Thing from Alan Moore. What else? I read The Invisibles. I read a lot of the British, wave comic books at the time. And I really liked Neil Gaiman. I read The Sandman as well, which is a fantastic comic series. One of the best things Neil Gaiman has ever done. But as in terms of his novels, I think that American Gods is his masterpiece. This will be the one he will be remembered for. Well, that and The Sandman. I haven't read all of his novels just yet. Like, I haven't read Anansi Boys, but American Gods is just, it hooks you from the beginning. I love how Gaiman really strips down the illusion of reality and showcases the magical undercurrent that exists underneath. It's really hard to describe this book in simple terms. It's not a book that you read, it's a book that you experience, which is how the best fantasy should be. It's also very genre bending. It's partly a road book. It's a mystery. It's also a fantasy novel, and I love how Gaiman plays with mythology in this. Especially as a Norse nut, I really love Mr. Wednesday and the other of the Norse pantheon. That reminds me, I still need to read Norse mythology because that just sounds right up my alley. I love Gaiman. I love Norse myth. I have no excuses, I know. But this book here was a magical experience, I have to say. And American Gods is one of those books, kind of like Great Gatsby, kind of like Blood Meridian. A book that I it's what I read for ultimately. It's a book that reminds me why I read and what keeps me coming back to reading. And I do think that American Gods is the best fantasy novel of the 21st century, bar none. I mean, I know there's going to be people like, what about Game of Thrones? And what about The First Law? Nah, bro. Nah. American Gods. American Gods is it. That's all I gotta say. And I like those series a lot. Gaiman only did it in one book, so suck on that. I'm kidding. Go read Game of Thrones and The First Law. They're also very good. I will be making my favorite fantasy books at some point. So, okay, we got another book here. Another book I actually did a review for, so I won't talk too much about it. Another book I just cannot, for the life of me, shut up about. It is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I've said this before, but when I was in middle school, just about to enter high school, I started reading a bunch of classic books. So I read stuff like Catch-22, Slaughterhouse-5, Catcher in the Rye, Great Gatsby, and one of those books I read was Lolita. This book is another one of those just magical books. I read this and I was just transported. But I should note before people start giving me the weird, cocked eyebrow, this is a very disturbing story about a very disturbed man, and it's beautifully devastating. Just the way, again, there's a clip from the film Captain Fantastic that really describes why I like this book far better than I ever could. But this book just changed me. It was kind of like Blood Meridian. I didn't know someone, or Great Gatsby, I didn't know someone could write like the way Nabokov writes. I mean, again, just read the first page, the first chapter of this book, and you'll be blown away. You'll just be like, whoa, where did he come up with this? And again, this guy spoke Russian, English, German, I think, and he translated his own books. Go read Lolita. I mean, it's not quite as bizarre and experimental as his other books, and to be honest, I've been terrified to try some of his other books. But Lolita, it's great. I love Lolita. I did a review of it. You can go see my more full thoughts on it. But this book was magical, and it really changed my life in a really screwed up way. It's a very magical book in a screwed up way. Because Nabokov plays with your intentions, he plays with your perceptions of the world, and he really, really forces you to question yourself. And what do you believe? Why do you feel this way? Is someone who is so horrible like Humbert Humbert, could he be humanized? Could he be human? What kind of person would be like Humbert Humbert? It's so good. And Lolita, bar none, one of the greatest books I've ever read. I remember going back to Carol real quick. I think Carol described it pretty nice. He described it as the most hilarious book about child molestation that you'll ever read, which, oh, I'm going to hell for that one. I'm just saying that right now. I'm going to hell. Next book I'm talking about is another one I read during that part of my life where I was reading a bunch of classic books just out of curiosity for fun. One of those books I forgot to mention was Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, with this beautiful illustration by Mike Mignola. So I'm really glad they got this, because my local bookstore got this, because I've been wanting to get this forever. And man, I'm so glad they did because I'm a big Mike Mignola fan. But Heart of Darkness is, well, let me put it this way. I find that great books, you don't read them, you experience them. And Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, I really love books where the location is very much a character of its own. And that's one of the reasons I really like Blood Meridian a lot, is because McCarthy is so good at that. He really knows how to make his settings feel alive, feel like their own character. I mean, there's other authors who are really good at that. China Mieville, for instance, is fantastic at that. But Joseph Conrad really captured this dark, shamanistic energy when he wrote Heart of Darkness. There's this deep sense of dread and unease that you feel when you read this book. The language in this is crisp, but it's also very highfalutin. Again, the prose in this is just great. I also love its exploration into savagery and what does it mean to be a savage per se. It really takes a lot of shots at imperialism, and it also really explores the inner savagery of human nature and discusses, like, we can all be pretty messed up when we're pushed to the limit. The Kurtz reveal is one of the most haunting things I have ever read. I mean, really. Now, I actually discussed a lot of my thoughts on Heart of Darkness on my friend Jason's channel, which again, I'll link down below, if you guys want to see that, where I kind of went into why this book in particular really changed my life. Well, for one, this book really taught me how to make a setting into a character on its own. And it's one of those books, kind of like Blood Meridian, that is so strange, so bizarre, that it almost feels like you're on another plane of existence. Like, this does not feel like Earth when I am reading this. It feels like you're in a entirely new plane of existence. Now, I know there's a lot of people who might, get mad and chafe and say this book is racist. And I have some opinions on that. I might make that into its own video. That might actually be an interesting video to discuss Heart of Darkness about. But I've already discussed my opinions on this particular book on Jason's channel. So if you guys want to check that out, go down below. Excuse me. And check it out. I had a lot of fun on that video. I probably should have done The Great Gatsby, because that book had a really big impact on me, but I'm glad that I managed to get on Jason's channel and talk about one of my favorite books, and that is Heart of Darkness. I mean, I guess another great theme that I really admire about this is really the price of self-knowledge, and that is particularly evident towards the end. So, yeah, Heart of Darkness, fantastic book. Check it out. It's great. It's really good. It's really good. Next book I have here, sci-fi novel. My only sci-fi novel on here. Again, I'm going to make my own sci-fi list at some point. Same thing with fantasy, but I had to bring up one science fiction book, and the one I have today is A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick is one of those cult writers that I'm a huge fan of, and I often defend him to my friends, because there's people who just don't understand the majesty of Philip Kendrick Dick. But A Scanner Darkly is, for my money, his best book. I do really like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep as well. I think that's also a really good book. But this one is, I think, is a masterpiece. It's really devastating, especially the afterword. But this book really authentically describes what it's like being a drug addict without, like, being super judgy or, don't do drugs, that type of stuff. You see it from just how they act and how they do things, that drugs will ruin your life if you let them. And there's some really great discussions about identity and what it means to be human, particularly in the identity scale. Like, what does it mean to be you? Why are you you? Why am I Britton Summers? Or why is Bob Arctor, and why is Bob Arctor Fred? It gets pretty weird. It's Philip K. Dick. It's also really funny. There's a lot of really funny scenes in this, and yeah, PKD's fucking hilarious at times. but I would say that this is my favorite book of his so far. I still need to read more. I actually just read Ubik recently with my friend Kindles and Kicks. Great guy, really fun to hang out with. Can't wait to talk about Ubik with him. But A Scanner Darkly is probably my favorite Philip K. Dick book. It's partly a crime novel, it's partly a science fiction novel, and it's also a character study of a bunch of drug addicted people. And the film by Richard Linklater is also really good. That's actually how I discovered this book. And probably the best PKD adaptation in terms of capturing what his style is like. Also, the rotoscoping in that film was a very inspired choice, I thought, because, my God, I mean, it just captures Phil's work so beautifully. I mean, that idea of real, but not quite, which I think really describes Philip K. Dick's work very well. But this book really, we really see Phil at his most personal, but we also see him at his most human. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book, despite the ramblings about identity. And there's a lot of really great, weird PKD stuff that I'm sure PKD nuts like myself will enjoy. So yeah. Last book I have here today is actually a nonfiction book. I don't talk usually a lot about nonfiction because, well, to be honest, it's kind of hard to, oh, excuse me there. It's kind of hard for me to discuss nonfiction unless there's like a narrative, something like Killers of the Flower Moon or Into the Wild, which I was thinking about adding Into the Wild into this video, but I'll save it for a future video. But the book I'm talking about here is Coltrane, Story of a Sound by Ben Ratliff. My friend and former teacher, Mr. Terry, gave me this book because we're both big jazz nuts. I am a huge fan of jazz music. I love John Coltrane a lot. I think A Love Supreme is one of the greatest albums ever made. I also really like Crescent, or is it Crescent? Crescent? I'm not entirely sure. But also Live at Birdland is fantastic. I mean, also Naima, not really an album, it's more of a song. Oh, God, so good. This book, though, isn't really about the what he did or how he did it. It's more why did he do it? Like, what inspired John Coltrane? Why did he make his music in the way that he did? And it's a very wonderful human. It's part biography, part like philosophical study on who John Coltrane was and why he made his music the way that he made it. There's also a lot of references to other jazz musicians like Miles Davis, who's one of my personal favorites. And they actually worked together. I mean, Coltrane was on his great album, Kind of Blue, which is, again, one of my favorite albums of all time, and also one of the greatest jazz albums ever made. I mean, hell, one of the greatest albums ever made in general. But Coltrane just, I mean, listen to his music sometime. Like, it's really soul-stirring stuff. I mean, even if you're not a jazz fan, I thought this was a really fascinating book. And I actually would love to read this again at some point. Because Ben Ratliff knows what he's talking about. Mr. Terry, my friend, actually gave me another one of his books. It's actually up there. It's called Jazz Ear. The Jazz Ear. I'm hoping to read that at some point. Though I don't know when. So, yeah. But Coltrane study, The Story of a Sound is really, really good. One of my favorite music books of all time. And it's also a really great study on not just jazz, but one of jazz's greatest artists who ever lived. Not really much else I can say. Check it out. So yeah, I think that is all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this little special video. I will definitely make more of these in the future. I'm gonna take this real quick. Delicious. Yeah, so next Friday I'm going to be putting out, or this upcoming Friday I will be putting out the video that I was going to record last Friday, but I had some stuff come up and I was sort of in a funk. But I'm doing better now, as you can see. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys check out those books. I will link the videos down below. Also, tag the people who I mentioned. All great people: Jason, Carol, Kindle and Kicks, Darko. Um, yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You can check me out on Twitter at SomeOkieDude. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Discord. You can come talk to me on there. Love hearing from you guys. And like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Press the button. As my buddy John Minton likes to say, it feels good when you do it. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it. And, hey, if you have some of your favorite books, let me know what they are down below. Love to hear from you guys. Alright, until next time.